Most AI just talks. This kind actually works. It answers your phone, it can book the appointment, it can follow up on the lead, it can update your system, all of it while you get to do something else.
That's right, and it's called an AI agent, the closest thing yet to an employee who never sleeps and never calls in sick. In the next few minutes, we'll show you exactly what it can do for your business right now and the one setup mistake that turns it into a lawsuit. Hey, what's up guys? I'm Ryan.
And I'm Paul.
Welcome to Blueprint Automation Systems. Welcome back to the AI Dictionary, where we take one piece of AI jargon and put it in plain English, no hype. Last episode, we talked about LLMs, the engine under ChatGPT, Claude, all of it. It talks, it answers questions. Today is what happens when that engine stops just talking and actually gets behind the wheel. And that's an AI agent. It's where AI stops being just a chatbot you talk to and starts being something that does the work for you. So by the end of this video, you'll know what an AI agent actually is, what it can do for your business right now, and how to put one to work without getting burned.
LLMs answer questions. An agent actually takes actions for you. Think of a kitchen, like a professional kitchen. The LLM is the head executive chef, has all the experience, can tell you exactly how to make the dish, every step, perfection, right off the top of their head. An agent is the sous chef who has to do it the same way, repeatedly, over and over in time. They cook it, they plate it, and they send it out to the table. The same knowledge, but one of them is actually talking you through it, while the other one is actually feeding the room. This is the part where the AI runs in through the workflow, not just the part that helps you think about it. That ideation we talked about last time. This is now GSD, getting shit done, okay? The gym version, every time you ask, like, what time's the 6 a.m. class in my academy, right? Do you have to go on Saturday? What are the old basic questions? The LLM has that. The agent answer those repetitive text, emails, messages through whatever your messaging system is. You don't have to be doing that for it.
Right, yeah, the agent is just executing those tasks for you, and you can use the LLM to come up with the execution tasks, and then the agent can take it and run with it. All right, so let's talk about what makes up an agent, right? And there's 4 parts, and that's pretty much it. So the first is its brain, right? And that's basically the LLM that does the thinking and the language, your ChatGPT, your Claude, your Gemini, Grok, pick your engine, it doesn't really matter. But same ones that we talked about last episode, right? And then the second thing is the tools, right? An agent that just can talk to you and learn things can't do anything if it's not connected to a tool to actually execute that work, right? So connections like your Google Calendar, your email, phone system, booking software, all of those things are tools that connect to your agent that allow it to go and execute those tasks. And every tool you connect is typically more than one thing it can actually do, right? So you give it access to your email. It can read emails, write emails on your behalf, it can draft emails, and then it can send those emails, right? So one tool doesn't necessarily mean one action, it's just a suite of things that it can kind of go and do. The third thing that an agent needs to have is a goal, right? You need to tell it, here's what I'm giving you, and here's what I want you to do with it, and here's your task, and you'll be successful once you hit this goal, right? So you need to give it kind of that end state that it's trying to achieve. And lastly, and we kind of include this as required, but memory. And it can be optional. You can have an agent that doesn't necessarily need access to its memory, and it can just go and push the same button over and over and over again. It doesn't really need that kind of context or memory for that. But there are a lot of tasks that agents are going to do where you want it to learn from its mistakes, remember all the things the last time it did those tasks. So when it goes and starts a new task, it's not starting from scratch every single time. It remembers the pitfalls, the hurdles, the bugs, the things that went really well, the reinforcements you've given it to say, hey, go do this, and hey, all right, that was a good thing you did, and this is a bad thing you did. Bad AI agent. And then, and so it maintains that memory so it can get more intelligent and execute the tasks better, faster, stronger.
A term you probably hear a lot is increasing context. The more increased context that the agent has, the better job it's going to do, the more reliable it's going to be, the less. Now, there are, you said, some incredibly simple yes-nos. Right. It probably doesn't need a lot of context for that. Yep. But when you see fail points, which we're going to talk about in here, context is often the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And you can pretty much, and going back to those required items, right? Now, if you were to strip away the tools, for example, all you really have is just a smart chatbot, right? If you don't give it access to do things, it's not going to do things. You're just looking at an AI chatbot that can't take action for you. And then bolt the tools on, and you've got something closer to like a digital employee. The nice thing is this digital employee never gets tired. They'll work at 2 a.m. They'll answer the phone call on a Saturday at 9 p.m. when you're out for dinner and drinks. AI agents, they don't have a bad day. They don't have emotions like people have. So, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, and, your employee is possibly going to screw things up because they've got other things on their mind. Whereas an AI agent can execute those tasks without that drama in the back of its head.
There's an interesting analogy here, right? I go back to the 90s and MapQuest. Right? So we probably, if you're a little bit of gray in your beard or hair, you may have a memory of trying to flip the page on MapQuest. If you did a long drive, I remember driving from Boston to South Carolina with my friend, and we were really relying on that thing to get us down there. I'm doing the driving, he's doing the directing, right? Now, I don't own a Tesla, but if I did, the agent is doing all of that, right? It's, someday I'm going to have that okay,
I want to go here.
Yeah, take me to the lake in New Hampshire that I like to go to, and I'm just going to chill a little bit. The agent's the thing that is handling that and taking care of it. It's got the map, it's got the controls over the wheels, it can see the traffic around you, and it can get all that stuff done. That's what the difference between just the straight up knowledge base and then how to take action.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk first about one of the things I'm most excited about. You've seen us talk about this in videos a lot, AI voice agents. So this is over the phone, right? So these are mature at this point. It is now June of 2026. This is a production-ready technology. It's no longer a science project. It's no longer, Star Trek. These exist. Real calls, real-time speech, sounds like a person, not a phone tree, which is a very simple yes, no. I have 3 questions that are answered already. These are actually adaptive. They're good systems. The saying that a containment rate, meaning the AI handles 100% of the phone call, is about 70 to 80% of the calls that come in, meaning no human ever has to get on the phone to handle follow-up, et cetera, et cetera. Handles messy human speech really well. There's a question that we're working on. We live in an area that has a lot of tech, so a lot of families from Asia and India, and accents can be very challenging over time if people are relatively new to the area, and they're trying, bless them, they're trying, and I have a Latin background and I don't hear their accent really well. So I'm curious to see how it handles like that. There's some talk, some scuttlebutt about it may just switch to their native language. Yeah. How cool would that be? I can't do that in my classes unless I'm a polymath with multiple lingual skills. I don't have that. But that would be really cool for communication purposes. So that's a follow-up question that we'll get back to you guys on. But these now exist in what's called a no-code platform. So for you business owners who are I don't want to have to learn how to code to have to then put this tool to work, these things exist. You can stand these things up in hours, not months. Yeah. Now, it does help to have context around it. That's a deeper dive.
Yeah, and ultimately, right, just to double click into that a little bit. Yes, you can stand one up in hours, but it takes time. You can train, so when you start up a voice agent, right, you can pick from some voices that it already has. You can actually talk to it for 4 or 5 hours or feed it voice samples of things you've recorded, and you can make it sound like you. And also, right, Paul mentioned the context layer. You can, again, stand one up in hours, but training it to answer 70 to 80% of questions are probably pretty simple, pretty repetitive. Your second brain is going to address a lot of those things. What hours are you open? Can I book a class? Those types of things. But when you start, and Paul talks about this, tell me about the nuance of American Jiu-Jitsu. Right. That's a different type of conversation, and so it might take longer to train up that AI agent to answer the more specific type questions. So,
I can address that contextually. I am weeks into building that context. Yeah. But again, I am 19 years into running a business. Right. So understand, and there's a lot of subtlety and nuance. It's not a lot of calls we get are what time is this class? When can I book a trial? Those are incredibly simple. Those are probably the ones that are gonna be handled entirely without anything else. When people want nuance, background, individual questions, well, that's me doing a deep dive into the history of the martial arts and how much do you want to give AI the capability? Well, 20% of the calls still go to a human.
Right.
So it's like, oh man, I'm sure the AI goes, it's a really good question. Let me get you to a human. I had this experience recently calling Valvoline. My 2007 vehicle, it had all the data. My 1994 Mustang did not. It had to get me to a human for that follow-up.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about an AI voice agent, right? Disclose that it's an AI voice agent on the call, and people are going to love that they can call up at any time and at least do the thing, book an appointment, the simple things that it's after, right? And when it gets into something more complex, it just punts it over to somebody there waiting to answer the phone, or hey, we'll set up a meeting so you and Paul can jump on a call, all the things, right? One thing that also AI can do for your small business right now, and we're just kind of talking through some various things, and it can do a lot more. These are just some examples to get your mind flowing, right? But like lead and customer follow-up, marketing, lead generation, getting customers in the door, a lot of times is super important for business. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, some businesses, have
well, if you want it to survive another year.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to, maybe make it till 2027. So the nice thing about that lead and customer follow-up, you can build these kind of canned solutions that like lead fills out form, sends automated email, does the, all the steps, right? Where an AI agent kind of takes that to the next level is it actually reads what the lead wrote in the form. They might have filled out the form and it's got like a little, what do you need box? And that AI agent can read what they wrote and respond specifically to their question. So it's not just a template going out and the person doesn't feel heard. The AI agent can tailor the message to, hey, I got your form request, answering your question, here's the answer. Do you want to set up an appointment, things like that. So they feel better about the response that you give it as opposed to those kind of generic templates. Same thing with those like little chat agents on a website where it's like, I choose this option and it gives me these answers, and it's less of that canned kind of response. And that's the nice thing too is, as the lead potentially moves through the pipeline, right, beyond just filling out the form, that lead then gets put into your CRM and you're working on booking an appointment. So your AI agent can say, hey, this person needs to book an appointment. Let me reach out to them and see if I can get them to book an appointment. And it can work that lead all the way through the process or punt it over to a human when it's time for that human to take over. But a lot of times you talk to a lot of leads. Some of them, maybe most of them might be tire kickers, might be wasting your time, might be a telemarketer that's filling out a lead. Like, do you want your website rebuilt, or have you thought about getting an extended car warranty, right? You don't want to waste time doing those leads. Let the AI agent filter those for you and only touch the leads that really matter to your business.
The follow-up communication, if you're a business, I don't know at what time you go from being a new small business to a legacy small business. I have no idea what that is. Let's pretend 5 years. I get people who come in who maybe tried a class 6 years ago, and now they're bringing their 12-year-old back where their 6-year-old, when that person was 6, is not interested. The AI that can follow up on this kind of stuff, because I'm not going to remember to send, we'll get 100 trials in Q1. It's really, yes, as Ryan said, you can put that canned stuff to work. Yep. And it's fine, but there's subtlety and nuance. Like, this person never showed up. How do we follow up with that person? This person showed up, but their schedule. So we want to make sure in the springtime when schedules are going to change, it follows up with them then, as opposed to just a canned sequence of like 7 days from now, they get the generic blast. Right. That would be a particularly useful system for anybody that's been around for more than 3 months, 12 months, where you're starting to develop this backlog of touch points with clients and prospects.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what we're doing with BAS right now, and also, the dojo, because we're kind of working on both simultaneously here.
I get to be the test dummy.
Guinea pig test dummy, whatever.
Is that an Italian joke, right?
It might be.
It's all good.
This one's not quite live yet, like we just alluded to in the call. We're in the middle of building it, right? But the AI voice agent for the phones, Paul's working on the second brain information to give it context to be able to do the things and stuff like that. And when it can't handle something, it'll hand it off to Paul, who's the only person that can typically, if an AI agent can't answer the question, it's probably going to be a question for him and not one of his teenage staff. So how does it, what are the rules, and how does it forward that call to Paul so he can answer those things? And the way that we're building this tool, right, is we're scoping it and building it the same way we tell you to. A quick plug, come drop by our school community. We're working through a lot of these problems, potentially live on live calls, or or on the message boards and things like that. And if you have something that you're trying to do with your company and you want some help just scoping it out, building the framework of what that looks like, stop by. And so we're having those kind of conversations there, but we're scoping out those jobs or this specific endeavor, building little pieces of that machine along the way. Here's one job, make sure it works before it touches anything else, and then plug it into the next thing, right? And we're doing the same thing with what we're calling our Blueprint Bot Command Center, where we've built a dashboard and it posts all of our social media, and the social media moves through that pipeline. And so we've built that in a modular way. So what we're building right now at BAS is a lot of little modules that do one specific job, right? We're hiring an employee to push the button, and we're hiring an employee to go over here and write this email, and then stringing it all together so it turns into one big workflow. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the risk, right? We gave some examples of where you can slot in an AI agent and things that you can have them do, but there is some risk depending on how much access you hand that AI agent. If you give it just a little bit, like, hey, access my email, never send anything, write me a draft, that's pretty low risk. You send an AI agent to go out and invest my dollars in the stock market automatically for me, a little more risk than that. So, if you give it the keys to everything and a bad configuration, and it can mass email all of your customers before you've had your coffee, that's probably some high risk thing that you may want to think about putting a human stop in place or a check until you know it works properly. Talk about legal. Let's talk about legal stuff.
Yeah, business owners, you love legal conversations, don't you? Every business owner I've ever met, it's what's not going to get me in trouble with my lawyer, what's not going to get me in trouble with my insurance company. And if you can get those two things kind of signed off, then you're like, I can actually do my business now. I can actually run my job. One of the great quotes I've heard about this is AI is moving at the speed of tech. Government moves at the speed of government. So understand what this can do and what the rules are not moving. This is tortoise and hare, and the tortoise is way behind. So there are rules being put in place today. This is going to have to be a living update. You don't really care per se about what's happening in Florida if you live in Massachusetts. However, if you are doing business in Florida, you are going to have to worry about that. So let's talk federal.
Well, and also just to quickly talk, right? Like, you might not care what's happening in the laws in California and Florida right now, right. But if you don't pay attention to those things, because typically you get one or two states that start and then it slowly trickles down to everybody else. Keep in mind that the stuff that you're building may be affected by laws in the future, and you may want to account for that as kind of just something to double click into there.
Right. So federal, right? As of right now, let's talk about a voice agent in particular. Federal government is treating a voice agent the same as a telemarketer, which we know we all love. So same robocall rules. So for a sales call, you need to have consent before they dial in, right? That's national, already covers you. For states, like everything, they're all over the map. You should see self-defense law. Oof. Some of them, California's, you already referenced, right? Obvious one. They are making and requiring that when somebody calls in, it says, I'm an AI voice agent right at the top of the call. And as Ryan said, dominoes, right? Somebody makes a rule, everybody's like, that's a good rule. We'll adopt that same thing. So we're seeing this start to pop up over and over and over again. So be conscious of that fact. There's an allegory in my industry where the knife laws, like self-defense knife laws, are so far all over the map, there's no way to keep track of it. Yeah. So there's a website, I don't know if there's one for AI law yet, probably going to come up soon. Yeah. There's a website, I think it's called like knifeup.com, you can Google it, where Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, what are the different laws, what's legal, what's not legal, what can I do, what can I not do, what can I carry, what can I own. It's really granular, and I'm sure more of that's going to come down the pipeline as these laws are enacted. Understanding a lot of stuff's been talked about in politician world, and not a lot has actually been put to work.
Right.
Shocker. So,
but I mean, AI is big enough. It's everywhere, right? Government's going to have to start putting things in place for regulations, and there is a lot AI can do. So there's a lot that it needs to cover. So ultimately, all we're trying to say is there are legal considerations when you stand up an AI something or other for your business, right? Mass email, phone calls, AI voice agent stuff. They're all going to have their own little thing that you just may want to be conscious of, right? You don't have to memorize every law in every single state, but if you start seeing a law that gets enacted somewhere, keep in mind that it may end up affecting you, whether you work with a customer in California or, whether Massachusetts is going to jump on board the bandwagon with whatever law. And you just may want to think about that before you build something and stand it up. Now, we recommend always, if you have an AI voice agent in your business, always disclose it's AI. Don't try to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. That removes trust between your client and you. Just be upfront about it. People like cool things like, you had mentioned, calling up Valvoline, and thought it was awesome that an AI voice agent was there to book your appointment and have that conversation with you. It's a cool tool. Let people know it's a tool, and don't try to pretend like it's, a human being, right? So some laws actually do make sense. And that's the rest of this conversation.
Broken clock, right? Twice a day. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, ways that you can reduce risk, or the way that you think about deploying these tools, right? So when you start, you build a tool, give it the least privilege possible, right? Let it read the things, but don't let it write the things. See what it reads first and say, write this for me, but don't commit it to the file, or something like that. Make sure that you have the power to watch that agent go through and do a process step by step and vet each stage along the way. And once you've watched it for a while, okay, you've got that human override in place for, refunds, complaints, anything legal, like a lot of financial stuff, anything that's got some sort of risk to it, make sure there's a human override or a human checkpoint in place. And once you've watched it for, depending on how high risk the thing is it's touching, watch it for a while until you're 100% confident, or let's say 90% confident, that it's going to do the same thing over and over again the way you want it to do, and not screw your company over or you over, right? So, think about it that way, right? And then as you're confident that it's doing the thing you want it to do, pull some of the handcuffs off and let it kind of go out and do the thing, so it's actually alleviating your workload, right? And it's important to remember that all of these things that we're talking about, eventually it will save you time, but there is the upfront build and training cost that's going to cost you more in the short term. So there is that investment, right? Spend time building these things right, so when you walk away, it's going to be consistently executing the thing that you built it to do. Make sure you're testing things before you push them live. You can a lot of times build something in what we call it a sandbox environment, right? So think of it like a walled off cube that has zero access to anything outside of that cube, and you throw an AI agent in there and give it some stuff to do and watch it do it, but watch it in that little sandbox environment or that cube before you actually push it live with real data, real customers, things like that, right? So for an example, like an AI voice agent on the dojo's website, I'm not going to put that live on the website and say, let's see what happens, right? We're going to build a little test website page that's completely separate from them and talk to it for a while, test it, make sure it can answer all the questions it needs to answer. You don't put those things live right out of the box. AI is a tool, right? Make sure the tool is doing what you want it to do before you actually put it out into the wilderness.
Since we're talking about agents in particular, meaning taking action, it seems like thus far, the biggest mistake you can possibly make is assuming that it knows every single time exactly what the action is. Context, as we mentioned earlier, needs to be built around it. The test environment, sandbox, I was thinking aquarium as you were discussing this, is a very, very useful thing. I've already planned out in my head, once we have give the AI agent my context from the academy, from my dojo, I can't wait to test it and test it and test it and have my team test it and ask it questions and see what questions it fails on. Where do we have to go with it contextually? Because it's pressure testing a system.
Yeah.
I run a martial arts school. If you do anything in the self-defense world, pressure testing is not optional.
Yeah.
This is the same thing in the tech world. Don't make it go live. Don't promise things it can do if you haven't tested the crap out of it. Sorry for the plain language, because you don't know where the fail points are. You have to know where those fail points are first, foremost, and primary.
Yeah, exactly. And really, just to wrap this section up, right? Start with small and measure it, watch it, evaluate it, and then scale it up or implement it. Things like that, right?
Test, and retest.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. All right, so we're gonna talk just really quick, all of our videos, we like to talk about the risk rating overall for everything here. And for AI agents, I would say the risk rating is medium to high, and it depends on what you're doing, right? So a lot of the highest ROI moves in a small business that AI can handle right now, it's also where the most can go wrong if you rush it and build it. And that's why we're putting the risk level a little higher here, right? If you're careful, like we just talked about how you deploy and how you test and you put guardrails in place and checks and balances, the risk is medium. It can still screw up even with checks and balances. But if you just build something and then shove it out into the wild, there's some pretty high risk there, right? Yeah.
My small business owners out there, have you trained an employee up and had them make a mistake, and either one of two things happened? You caught yourself insufficient in your training, happens, right? Or that lesson didn't land for them and they made that mistake again and again and occasionally again. This really isn't any different, okay? It probably has a higher rate of learning, so the speed at which it can learn is significantly higher than the human, but it's silly for us to think that it can't make possible mistakes, right? It's interpreting some things on its own. Yeah. It's vitally important to understand that those are a possibility and you treat it as such, which is why we're giving it that red rating, right? I have trained people from never having had a job before to one of my senior people, a teenager, but still, or even actually full-time program director. Mistakes are made. Mistakes are made. Here's the problem. You can do it better. Just make your peace with that fact. I know I can do it better than every single staff member I have. It's my business. I should be able to do it better than all of them. This is trying to build up more robust ability around you so more can get done individually relying on the system as opposed to the humans. Doesn't mean that the humans don't have to check it. That's not what that means at all. Yeah. You've got to check, and recheck, as we said.
Yeah. And ultimately, right, just to wrap up the risk section, pick one small, well-scoped job, something all the variables on, every single step that it needs to take, something that intimately well, and use that and build that agent and then measure it and then earn that right to build something else. Make sure that's working. And then, okay, now I understand, and especially if this is the first thing that you've built with an AI agent, right? Start small, something that all the little nuances that only that business owner can know, and then build it until it's ready to fly off into the wild.
There's a quote from the firearms training community. It's aim small, miss small. If I aim for this small area, then my miss should be somewhere pretty close to it, and build that up over time. Faster, more reliable, more steady, and more robust is the thing. But again, start in that small context.
All right, so quick note here on this video, and we're gonna dive into this a little bit more later, but we wanna talk really quick about MCP. And MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what it does is it's similar in a way to APIs, but what it does is it's almost like a standardized plug that lets AI agents connect to your tools without somebody hand building every connection. And so think of it like a gas pump, right? It doesn't matter what you drive, the nozzle fits into the tank, unless you're diesel and regular unleaded. There's plenty of memes and social media videos around that happening. But anyway, the nozzle fits that tank, right? And you don't need a special pump for every type of car. And MCP is like that standard nozzle for plugging an agent into your tools. So this went from, and the reason why we want to talk about it is because it's becoming a lot more standardized. So it went originally from, I think it was a side project in late 2024 to create an open standard that all of the AI agents would use, right? So OpenAI, Google, and Microsoft, they all came together and built this thing called MCP, and they all adopted it. And then that kind of got it kind of got handed off into a standard, I think it was late last year. And the reason why you care about this is because connecting agents to your software is getting cheaper and faster, better, stronger. So there are some other conversations we're going to get into in a later video about like API versus MCP and token usage. And there's some little nuance there, but it was something that we didn't originally bring up and just wanted to talk about it briefly in this video. So if you see MCP and you're like, well, the Blueprint Automation System guy said I needed API, think it's a standardized way of communicating, letting your agent talk to these various tools, and a ton of tools are on board with this. So chances are, if you're connecting your AI agent to something, it's going to have, if it doesn't have an API connection, it probably has an MCP connection.
Would it be a fair analogy? And I'm asking, USB, USB-C, my mini USB, they're all getting information across. Right. It's just, what are the connection ports looking like?
Yeah, and some of the new USBs are faster, or they have different purposes. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's just it's a little bit nuanced, and we'll dip into that later. But something good to mention here when you're thinking about how can I build this thing, and you look up and say, oh, this thing doesn't have an API connection. Well, it might have an MCP connection. That's why we wanted to bring it up here, because it's super important for how AI agents interface with the tools, which, as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, is one of those things that's required for an AI agent to do a thing, right? Yeah. So let's wrap this one up, right? The basics, right? An LLM talks and an agent does. That's one distinction that changes what's possible in your business.
The tech itself is now, to a certain extent, mature. The phone agents, voice booking, the ability to do follow-ups, internal reporting, these are all deployable today. The risk itself is real and mostly legal and access control. Who has access to it? What information? We've seen big AI companies have leaks because the agents put some stuff out there, and this is their own product. Yeah. So being conscious about that is going to be super important for us, the little guys. So don't skip the disclosure rules, guys.
Yeah. Make sure you're just conscious of, when you're building these things, that legal background there that it needs to keep an eye on, so you're not screwing yourself over.
Right.
Like, could you hand an agent the keys to your whole business? Sure. Should you? Again, we talk all the time. Could you, should you? Yes, you can, but should you? No, right? Start with one thing, prove it out first, and then build something else.
Yep. So pick the right job, build it, then expand upon it, right? Aim small, miss small. Don't try to automate your whole place at the same time, all on day one. Like I said, I'm building this second brain personally. The goal is first email and voice agent.
Yep.
And we will see what else can be built after that.
That's right. In the next episode, we're going to deep dive a little bit more into like ChatGPT versus Claude versus Gemini versus Grok, these tools, and kind of talking a little bit more about, like, we've talked about LLMs and what an LLM is, but the next video is going to deep dive into what's ChatGPT, why should I use it here, what's Claude good at, what's Gemini good at, and we'll discuss those things.
Yep. We have a free school community. Come join it. Come join the conversation there. You can hit subscribe on this video if you want to see more of this coming in. We've got a whole lot of really short clips about, like, kind of the facts, action, the stuff that we're doing. And we're going to be dropping one of these dictionary episodes every single week for you guys.
That's right. And soon we'll also have build out videos, tutorials to actually build these tools. So definitely stop by our school SKOOL community and join the discussion. We've got a whole classroom section with classes you can check out.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching.